What is the chilling secret of Dr. Moreau's secret island?
Who are the brutish men who serve the doctor?
And what about the House of Pain?
These and other questions will be answered in this week's
It's Frenzy Frights.
Welcome to Frenzy Frights, a newly renamed horror movie review show. My name is Gerry.
And I'm Chris.
And we are your hosts.
On Frenzy Frights, we are going to try to talk about horror movies, monster movies, creature features, and spook shows of all sorts. We love these movies, even if sometimes they fall short. We will share our love for these films, but also point out issues in a genre-appropriate way.
We are definitely going to be rating on a curve. Chris, what movie are we talking about today?
Thank you so much, Professor. We are honored to talk about The Island of Lost Souls. This was from 1932. This was directed by Earl C. Kenton. The screenplay was by Waldemar Young and Philip Wiley. This was based on The Island of Dr. Moreau by H.G. Wells. For our cast, we have Charles Laughton as Dr. Moreau, Richard Arlen as Edward Parker, Leela Hyams as Ruth Thomas, Bela Lugosi as Sayer of the Law, Kathleen Burke as Loda, the Panther Woman, Arthur Hole as Montgomery, Stanley Fields as Captain Davies, Paul Hurst as Donahue, Hans Steinke as Oren, and Tetsu Komai as Imling. Gerry, give us a brief synopsis of the movie, and we will follow up with our thoughts.
All right. So the steamer Covina picks up a man on a derelict boat. He's Edward Parker and the survivor of a shipwreck. On board the Covina, he wakes up screaming, "Ruth, Ruth!" He's okay and gets them to telegram, said Ruth, to let her know when he will arrive in port. Very cool. Parker notices that the cargo of the ship is like a lot of wild animals, tigers, gorillas, stuff like that. And the crew tending to them are really freaky looking. They're animalistic and silent. Parker meets the captain, and he says once they drop off the cargo on an uncharted island, Dr. Moreau's island, they will drop Parker off at their next port. Moreau's island has a nasty reputation that's hard to get around. Parker and the captain get into a fight over the captain's treatment of a crew member, and Parker knocks the captain down. So when they get to Moreau's island, the captain forces Parker to leave with Moreau and the morally gray Dr. Montgomery, as well as all the freaky-looking crew members. Moreau brings Parker to his island, and all his servants have the same animalistic looks as the ones on the ship. Parker wonders what Moreau is doing with this menagerie of wild animals that he had shipped over. Moreau introduces Parker to Loda, the only female on the island. She is strange but seductive. Moreau leaves the two of them alone, but secretly spies on them. He wants to see if Loda will be attracted to Parker. Suddenly, there's a scream outside. Loda cowers. It's from the House of Pain. Parker follows the screams and finds Moreau operating on what looks to be one of the natives that's screaming in agony. Moreau shouts, "Get out! Get out!" And Parker does, which is a good idea. I probably would have too. Parker thinks Moreau is torturing a man, so he goes to escape the compound with Loda, take Moreau's boat, and get away from the island. Well, that's the plan anyway. But in the jungle, they run into a pack of fierce natives and are captured. Bela, also known as the lawgiver, is their leader. Moreau shows up and breaks the party up, and he gets the natives to repeat their moral code. "What is the law? Do not kill. That is the law. Are we not men?" Classic stuff. Moreau brings Parker and Loda back to the house and says that he wasn't operating on a man, but an animal that he's turning into a man through his operations. Anyway, you're here now, so why don't you have sexy times with Loda? Maybe, but Ruth, no, I don't think so. But it is tempting. The next day, when it's time for Parker to leave on Moreau's boat, they find it's been sunk. Moreau looks guilty, but hey, what you gonna do? Now you're stuck here. Back in civilization, Ruth finds out that Parker isn't on the Covina like he said he would be. With the help of the American embassy, they get the location of Moreau's island and hire a ship led by Captain Donahue to rescue Parker. That embassy sure is helpful to rich white people in trouble. Back on the island, Loda has fallen in love with Parker and throws herself at him. Parker momentarily forgets about the Ruth situation and kisses her back. But something doesn't feel right. She hugs him and scrapes at his back. He looks at her fingers, and they are animal claws. Parker has finally figured out that Loda used to be an animal and has been turned into a woman by Moreau. Yuck. And I almost... yuck. Parker confronts Moreau, but he's trapped on the island. Moreau creepily offers Loda to him anyway. Parker slaps him and orders him to arrange him to get off the island ASAP. Moreau wonders how Parker knew she was an animal, and when Loda shows him her claws that are returning, he orders Montgomery to take her to the House of Pain. His plan is, and I quote, "I'll make her completely human. I'll keep Parker here. He's already attracted. Time and monotony will do the rest." He's not wrong. Well, morally he's wrong, but anyway. Ruth and Captain Donahue arrive at the island and make their way through the native-filled jungle to Moreau's house. Moreau invites them in, and then invites his personal goon manimal Oran, who shows an interest in Ruth, which Moreau sees. Moreau then locks the gate with Oran inside. It's getting late, and the jungle is full of angry natives. "Stay the night. You can't leave now. Leave in the morning." That kind of stinks, but okay. They all go their separate ways to their separate bedrooms. Oran tries to break into Ruth's room. She screams, and Parker shoots at him to chase them off. They decide that they are in as much danger inside the house as in the jungle, so they set off. They get surrounded by natives, and we get another "what is the law" scene, which is awesome. We find out that Moreau's plan is sinister. Since Parker looks to be leaving the island, there isn't time for him to come around to bedding Loda. So instead, he wants Oran to have sex with Ruth, one way or the other. Montgomery is horrified at the plan. Donahue leaves to get an armed gang from the ship, but Oran kills him and brings his dead body to camp. The natives are horrified. "What is the law? Not to spill blood. That is the law, are we not, men?" "But Oran spilled blood." "But Moreau told me to." The law is no more. That's pretty solid logic from the animal team. The natives also realized that since Donahue died, white men can die. So can Moreau. That's an interesting point. Moreau confronts them with his normal shtick, but that does not go that well. "Law no more, law no more." They attack and grab him and take Moreau to the House of Pain. Ruth, Parker, and Montague run off as the island burns to get to the ship. Loda is killed, saving them from an attack, and the others leave the burning island as Moreau gets the full House of Pain treatment. Wow. Well, that is Island of Lost Souls. Chris, what'd you think about the show?
Well, Prof, as per usual, when I do these things, I'll get a little bit of trivia out of the way first.
All right.
This film has a running time of just a mere 70 minutes. Per Wikipedia, the film is Paramount's follow-up to the successful horror film Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. This had several writers, including Joseph Moncure March, Cyril Hume, Garrett Ford, and Philip Wiley, who worked on scripts for the film. While Paramount had invited stage actor Charles Laughton to Hollywood, they did not have the film set up for him, leading him to work on other projects from 1932. For the role of Loda the Panther Woman, a contest was held across the United States to cast an unknown actor for the film. From the thousands of contenders, the final group was Lona Andre, Gail Patrick, Verna Hilly, and the winner being Kathleen Burke. Island of Lost Souls began production on October 1st, 1932. Some of the scenes were filmed on Catalina Island. And during production, Bela Lugosi joined the cast, having declared bankruptcy during the same month, and production ended in early November. Island of Lost Souls was released in December of 1932, and since then, several edited forms have been released with several edits to remove dialogue and scenes, including Dr. Moreau. The film was banned in several countries, including the United Kingdom, Germany, Italy, India, and New Zealand. Theatrical, television, and home video releases have often been truncated until the 2011 release by the Criterion Collection. which was described by the company's president as one of the most difficult restorations they had ever done. Critical reception was mixed, noting the horrific nature of the film. Retrospective reviews have been positive and have often complimented Laughton's performance. Some reviews praised the cinematography, while others noted the film's disturbing themes. Circling back to cast the Panther Woman, Paramount publicist Arthur Mayer developed a contest that involved giving the winner a trip to Hollywood, $200, equivalent to $46.10 in 2024, for 5 weeks, a home at the Ambassador Hotel, and a role in the film. Contestants were required to be between the ages of 17 and age 30, to be in good health, between 5'4" and 5'8", and not having worked or been related to anyone who worked at Paramount. In his memoir, Merely Colossal, Mayer stated that the newspapers were cooperating with Paramount on the project and they received tons of offers. The contest attracted 60,000 applicants. There were 4 finalists, as previously stated: Lona Andre, Gail Patrick, and Kathleen Burke, and Verna Hilly. According to Hilly, who was living in Detroit at the time, Paramount had published the contest in several major city newspapers. Hilly was performing on radio at the time, and her mother submitted her for the contest. When Paramount contacted Hilly, she appeared as one of the 8 to 12 finalists in different theaters in the Metro Detroit area, and 3 succeeding on consecutive Saturday nights. Each week, a few of the finalists were eliminated from the contest. Audience would privately vote for the performer they liked best, and Hilly won her spot in Detroit. As production was set to start, the 4 finalists of the Panther Woman contest arrived in Hollywood. According to historian Gregory Mank, early publicity photographs to make the winners look less like vamps as they do classmates at a, quote, convent school. The final judges of the contest were Cecil B. DeMille, Ruben Mulalian, Ernst Lubscht, Herman Trog, Stuart Walker, and Earl C. Kenton. On September 29th, 2 days before the production was set to begin, Kathleen Burke was summoned to the casting office and told she won the contest. Not so bad, though. Hilly, Andre, and Patrick also received Paramount contracts. For more trivia, during a scene, one of the extras who was dressed as a beast man reportedly got too close to the bars of a tiger's cage, leading to the tiger nearly tearing off his arm from its socket. The fate of the man was unknown, but Laughton's wife, Elsa Lanchester, confirmed this story, recalling the incident shocked Laughton and the others on the set. Also on the set, Kathleen Burke's boyfriend, Glenn Rardin, began following her to work each day. The continuous visits led to a fistfight between Rardin and the director, Kenton. Later on, in 1935, Screenlit magazine interviewed H.G. Wells himself, who stated Island of Lost Souls is, quote, terrible, and that his story was, quote, handled miserably. With all respect to Charles Laughton, who is a splendid actor, and others concerned in making of this moving picture, I must say it was handled with a complete lack of imagination. Wells also disliked the film's emphasis on horror and how it is different from his novel, stating, quote, no subtlety was used in the creation of this dreadful atmosphere. The whole thing was so ridiculously obvious that I must repeat it was miserable, unquote. Ouch. One more point. Now, as far as I know, at the time of this recording, this movie is not available on YouTube nor any of the free streaming services such as Tubi, much less in any streaming pay platform's library. For the sake of this podcast, I had to rent this via on-demand cable for $3.99, not too bad, from Universal, despite it being a Paramount picture. I don't know how these rights work, but it's sort of weird, but there it was. Oh, Prof, I turn it back to you before we both dive in. I think you've got a little bit of a nostalgic charm and history with this, so I'll let you take the floor because I think this is great.
Yeah, I do. So I remember this movie being on Creature Features, the WNEW Channel 5 Metro Media station that ran this horror movie on Saturday night. This is the same station that aired It's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are? The host of Creature Features was The Creep, played by Lou Steele. And he was also the voice of Channel 5, the guy that said, it's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are? So it was a little weird having him, basically a middle-aged guy in sunglasses and I think a bow tie, sitting in a chair as the horror host. But it was my favorite show back then, much like Svengoolie is today. The reason I bring this up is I had a tape recorder back then and used to record the audio of these horror movies and play them back later. And I would let it go through the commercials. And, you know, I loved this movie as a kid, and I played this tape that I made over and over. One of the advertisers that was, airing when the show was on, when the movie was on, was Bain de Soleil, the suntan lotion or suntan oil or whatever. So whenever I think of this movie, I think of the jingle, Bain de Soleil for that Saint-Tropez tan. I just can't help it. It's just so natural. It's like, the tropics and stuff like that. It's perfect for this movie. This is a very dark movie. Moreau is really immoral and is a real mad scientist. He's a madder scientist than Dr. Frankenstein, because you can understand why what Frankenstein is doing is so interesting. Moreau is here just torturing animals, torturing people, trying to force them to have sex with each other. I mean, he's a real pervert. He's just an absolute madman. It's an excuse for his kinks almost. Now, the timing for this movie, just so you can kind of put it into perspective, is 1932. So this is after Dracula and Frankenstein, the same year as The Mummy, the Karloff Mummy. This is prior to Laughton as Quasimodo, but after The Old Dark House. So that's where it is in kind of Charles Laughton's career as a horror hero or whatever. And one of the things that I really like about this movie, and I'm sure we'll come up with this later, is the vibe of this movie. It's so dark. It's so creepy. It's so menacing. And I really like how Moreau kind of uses a whip to subdue and chase off, his creation natives. It's very colonial. And his house has iron gates. So on the one hand, when you close the gates and lock it, you feel safe, but you also feel trapped. And then how you also hear these occasional screams throughout the movie from the House of Pain. It's almost like this ever-present feeling of dread that is just out there and just in every frame of this movie. Chris, do you have any other items you want to talk about the film?
Yeah, thanks, Prof. On a personal note, as a Batman fan, I'm compelled to mention the similarities to this movie and the Batman the Animated Series episode Tiger Tiger, where Selina Kyle was kidnapped by a mad scientist named Emil Dorian and transformed into a humanoid cat. My first exposure to the Island of Dr. Moreau's story was the film of the same name that came out in 1977 with Burt Lancaster and Michael York. My only recollections were not so much of the film itself, but being very, very sick at the time when I saw it. But the opportunities of going to the movies with my family was kind of rare, and I already stayed at home sick when my sister and my dad got to see Food of the Gods, another HDL's work, that I was not going to miss another movie, being sick or not. I heard a lot of good things. Oh, and it was such a great outing. So I felt a little jealous of those two getting to see it. So I wasn't about to do that. But that said, this was the summer of 1977. This was the summer of Star Wars, which I would go to see in the theater 4 times that year during to varying circumstances. And typically it was a buddy celebrating his birthday party with his friends, including me. And so, what do you want to do for your birthday? Oh, want to go see Star Wars? Yeah, let's see Star Wars again. So that was the time. You had to be there. For what it's worth, Marvel Comics also released a comic book based on the Island of Dr. Moreau in 1977. It was a movie tie-in. It was written by Doug Mensch and drawn by Larry Hama that came out around the same time. And it was weird seeing that on a spinner rack because you didn't see too much. Marvel must have thought this was good. They did Star Wars, of course, but the property of Island of Dr. Moreau, putting that out there was kind of key. And I thought that was kind of unusual. This was a bold move, I thought. I don't recall my first viewing of this particular 1932 movie. I think I was in college, and I think I was watching it with, quote, other band movies like this, such as the movie Freaks, which I think was also around that same time period, and seeing it with others from the college library. For what it's worth, the Island of Dr. Moreau's story would again be put to film in 1996 with Marlon Brando and Val Kilmer. This version is said to be the weakest of the lot and was also beset by numerous production problems, from bad weather to script rewrites to casting and directing changes and purported personnel conflicts, which would be chronicled in a 2014 documentary, Lost Soul, The Doomed Journey of Richard Stanley's Island of Dr. Moreau. For what it's worth, the South Park character, Dr. Alphonse Mephisto, is based on Marlon Brando's performance of Dr. Moreau. Prof, this is the part of the show I'm going to dig. I want to hear what some of your favorite moments of the movie were, then I'll share mine, and then we'll have a little bit of back and forth discussion on those.
You bet. I love the Are We Not Men, the whole law giving sequences, all of them. I think there are 3 throughout the movie, and the last one goes super bad. But seeing Lugosi in this film is such a cherry on top. I love the vibe. I love just the way it feels, the decadence and just the absolute, horrifyingness of this movie. But having Lugosi being so good as the leader of these animal people is fantastic. And his whole "Are we not men?" in that Lugosi accent, chef's kiss. One of the things he said, "Not men, not beasts, part man, part beast, things." And he just rips that line apart, just chews it up and spits it out. I love it. Another great quote is when Laughton is talking to Loda about, introducing her to Parker. He says, talk about whatever you want, but say nothing about me. Say nothing about the law. Say nothing about the House of Pain. That's the first time we hear about the House of Pain. And it's like, what about the House of Pain? And yeah, again, Moreau is the maddest of mad scientists. Again, Dr. Frankenstein, you can understand why it would be so important for medicine to be able to bring back people to life. But Moreau is just absolutely carried away with the kinkiness of the situation and is making decisions to satisfy his misogynistic tendencies. He's a great bad guy, truly evil. And I think, and I'm not 100% sure, but I think the end music has strains of Rhapsody in Blue in it. I just noticed that watching it for this show. I just noticed that for the first time. So check out Rhapsody in Blue at the very end of the credits. So, Chris, what are some of your thoughts on this movie?
Prof, I didn't catch it until you said it, but now that I'm thinking back on it, yeah, I think you are correct with that Rhapsody in Blue. That was a very, very astute observation there, key catch there. Prof, I was a fan of the band Devo before I caught on to the Are We Not Men line. And obviously Devo took that and ran with it early on in the band's career. So great stuff there. I can't help but think of Devo when I hear the Are We Not Men repeated over and over again with the early Devo stuff and from the band's late 70s stuff. Dr. Moreau's facial hair, I think, is quite unique. His mustache is a bit wider for it to be considered a, quote, Hitler-esque mustache. And he doesn't have really a goatee, and it's not really a Van Dyke. It's kind of a mustache with, what would you say, maybe like a chin puff. I was really unique facial hair. It was really kind of interesting with the look at this. There was a scene in this one that stood out to me, and it's where Parker and Loda are sitting by this little pond, and they're having this intimate chat. And the camera pans down, and we see that there's this little pond and a reflection, and I think it was really well done. And you kind of get like, hey, this is sort of like a reflecting pond, and they're kind of reflecting their emotions. But in the puddle, it's blurry, and I don't know if this was deliberate symbolism or not, but I thought, wow, that's kind of cool how they pulled that off. And I really liked how this scene was shot. She kind of lays into him in a seductive way, and he just can't help be mesmerized by her beauty. And there's something really taboo about this, but it crosses the line and then it snaps right back. I like how that scene played out. One of the supporting characters was this guy by the name of Captain Donahue, and he appears a little late in this. And I just love the laid backness of this guy. He just doesn't seem to be fazed by anything. He's a come what may guy. he's just really cool. Even at the onset of the appearance of the Ape Man, he just doesn't seem fazed by this. Or if there's a weird sound, that's obviously this weird parrot.
Yeah.
He just kind of always deflects. I think this poor guy deserved a better fate. And when the group has this opportunity, okay, let's bail. Let's get out of here. No, we're going to stay another night. Oh, what could possibly go wrong? I mean, come on. You have to immediately leave, but there it was. Bela Lugosi. I love his performance here. He seems to relish what little he had to do here. He didn't phone it in. I think he really just gave a real earnest performance in just what little that he had to do here. I thought the makeup, considering the time period, was quite good. Mm-hmm. And I really, really appreciated this. These were really unique and grotesque figures in the background. And it was kind of like, oh my gosh, am I seeing this correctly? Are my eyes deceiving me? Wow. Really, really good and kind of understated how it was subtly done there. For our requisite couple in peril, I thought Arlen and Hyams really, really did a good job. This is something you see typically in horror movies. They look great. They look like a perfect couple here. And I kind of got a Saturday morning serial vibe from these guys. This was really good. Prof, one of the things I wanted to discuss with you was the performances of Laughton particularly, and Burke as the Panther Woman. There are so many moments where she just expresses and conveys so much just with her facial expressions, her eyes. She's evocative. She's cat-like. I'm trying to wonder, for this being, I presume, her first acting performance to this scale, was it too over the top? Was it understated? Was it just enough? I think she really towed a line here, and I think she did quite well. Knowing that there was a contest, though, with 60,000 applicants that narrowed it down to 4, I'm trying to wonder what one of the other 3 would have done in their performances. But I thought Burke was really, really good here. But there were some moments where I thought she was really close to towing a line of kind of overdoing it. And I don't know if that was based on the direction or not. I think there were some times where I read that I didn't put in my notes that they had to reel it in a little bit because she was going a little too fast. So I think this was really good. Prof, so I put it to you. What did you think of the performance of Laughton as Dr. Moreau? And what did you think of Burke as the Panther Woman?
Well, I think this is a great performance by Laughton. And there's one moment in particular where he's talking to Parker about his creations. And he's saying, unfortunately, he's having trouble teaching them to talk. And it was very, very difficult to teach them to talk. And he then has an idea and makes a misogynistic comment saying like, oh, if I wanted them to talk more easily, I should have created a woman. Parker doesn't know at this time Loda is one of his creations. And the way he delivers the line, he just turns into this scheming, gleeful, like naughty little boy. And Laughton, just something happens to his face that takes over his face that is probably shouldn't be filmed. Just seems very, just gross. Like he's just a gross guy. But one of our greatest actors and a great moment to kind of show Moreau's his personality. I agree. I think sometimes Loda is a little flat and sometimes she's a little much. So I think, her not being up to the caliber of Laughton and some of the other actors here, if she was picked by a contest, maybe they could have gotten a better actress, but I'm sure they were just trying to get somebody, a sexy woman who had interesting features and maybe didn't choose on their acting ability. I don't think she was a great actor, but, she got it done for me anyway. One scene that I really liked was when Parker first kind of kissed Loda. And he kisses her and is like, yuck. Like he doesn't realize she's an animal, but there's something about her kiss that grosses him out. And Chris, do you ever see the movie Soap Dish?
No, I don't believe I have.
It's a takeoff on a soap opera, and Kevin Kline and Elizabeth Shue are in it, and they play father and daughter, although they don't know it. It's been a secret that Sally Field's character kept from Kevin Kline that he had a daughter, and he goes to date Elizabeth Shue, not knowing that it's his daughter. And at the end of the night, when he goes to quote unquote kiss her goodnight, he kisses her on her forehead, and he doesn't know why, and she doesn't know why. He just couldn't bring himself to kiss her. So he just gives her a peck on the forehead. And it reminds me of the scene with Parker. There's just something about her that I should not be kissing this girl. And then he finds out about the claws, so that's pretty good.
Good catch there, Prof. I'm going to have to find that. I like how you tied that back in and you had that memory and you kind of put it towards this one. That was a nice catch, Prof.
Hey, you gotta be sensitive to the vibes when you're kissing.
Indeed. Prof, any other thoughts and comments with respect to this one? This was a great classic film, and we could probably go on for a while, but I'm just wondering if there was anything else that stood out to you, makeup or any other performances. I thought the scenery was good. I thought there were some implausibilities, but here we are. The story moved along, and I had no up until doing the research for this, I had no idea that H.G. Wells was still around and that he had a beef with this movie because I kind of really liked it myself.
Yeah, I did too. He should have seen the Marlon Brando one. Then he really would have been angry. I just think, so this is a movie that I personally love. This is in my, kind of Hall of Fame of horror movies, something I saw early in my life that is kind of foundational to the kind of movies that I like. I recognize that it's kind of old and clunky, and I love it anyway. So that's kind of my overall feeling. I recognize that there's some nostalgia feels for why I love this so much, but it just really works for me. How about you?
Yeah, Prof. And I think we circle back to something we previously talked about. It's where we come at these movies. You came at this from Creature Features. I came at it from like, oh, this was a band movie. That means, now I've got to see it just to catch it and see what the hullabaloo was about. I'm just wondering, though, Prof, too, if you have any recollection, if this was only 70 minutes, I'd have to think the Creature Features, did they have to kind of pad the show out a little bit to kind of fill it, I wonder? And if so, I wonder how they pulled it off with any of that. But yeah, this was a great view for me. It had been way too long since I have revisited it, and just seeing the performances, I thought Laughton was fine with just him being so understated. And boy, he could really wield that whip. So I'm wondering if he had to do any training on the side to prepare for the role. And I thought Burke was just fine. I'm curious to see if there were any other publicity shots of the women possibly in costume. But can you imagine having like a huge casting call today for a film and what that would wrought, and to see something like that? I think that would really be curious. Like, I don't think they would offer a role to somebody like that today. I mean, they think that there would be too much at stake. But can you imagine back then the publicity and such like that? And I would wonder to see if they did something like that on a scale like today, how many thousands, possibly million women would audition or try out for this part, and to wean it down and then to cast an unknown. Yeah, that would be unbelievable by today's standards, I would think.
Yeah. Well, definitely in terms of for playing on Creature Features to fill this out for the 90 minutes, they had to play a lot of Band de Soleil ads, apparently.
I remember that jingle. Yes.
Too funny. Well, thank you for checking out Frenzy Frights. Check out our other shows, the Professor Frenzy Show, where we cover indie comics, That Guy in That Show, where we looked at great character actors, and our Twilight Zone episode review, where we review, wait for it, Twilight Zone episodes. Thank you for listening. It's Frenzy Frights.